After playing Monster Hunter Wilds beta, I've come to realize that many of its issues I had with Monster Hunter World are still present. While I was initially hopeful that Wilds would address some of my concerns, my experience with the beta has confirmed that, despite some improvements have been made, the core frustrations remain largely unchanged. My first introduction into the Monster Hunter series was with the Monster Hunter World, and I also played Monster Hunter World Iceborne. I finished the campaign in both, but could never fully enjoy the experience. I even dabbled with some Monster Hunter Rise on PlayStation 5, hoping it would just click with me, but I had some similar issues. When I got the chance to try Monster Hunter Wilds beta, since it was an open beta, I was curious to see if it would fix the problems I had with the world, but unfortunately, it seems not much has changed. Now, I do like Monster Hunter games, from their well-realized worlds to the great armor and weapon designs and genuinely terrifying monsters that are thrilled to go up against. However, despite these positives, I often struggle to engage with the series due to its mechanics. As someone who typically prefers playing games alone, hunts feel tedious as I chip away at my target's enormous and invisible health bar. While Monster Hunter Wilds makes some improvements, many of my core frustrations remain. For an example, while the game does feature some form of NPC assistance, it isn't as robust or central as I initially thought. There were hopes that Wilds would introduce a true single-player friendly experience with an AI-controlled hunters who could actively assist, but that's just not really the case. The support features are still quite limited, meaning solo hunts can still feel like a slog. The open world, which was initially point of a contention among the fans, is more dynamic now, featuring weather effects and new environmental interactions. However, the game still uses segmented hunting zones with loading screens between them, so it doesn't offer a fully seamless experience that I hoped for. The addition of the Sacred Mount does help traversal, but it doesn't fully eliminate the frustrations of navigating large maps, especially when monsters travel long distances during a hunt. Turf Wars return in Wilds, and while they remain visually impressive, they still feel like an unnecessary interruption rather than a meaningful mechanic. Instead of providing a strategic advantage, these encounters often prolong fights in frustrating ways, making them more chaotic than rewarding. The tracking and investigation system has seen some refinements, but gathering clues and scanning footprints still feel like an unnecessary busywork rather than an engaging mechanic. It slows down the pace of the game rather than adding the excitement to the hunt. Limited time events quests also continue to be an issue in Wilds. Missing out on the time limited events means missing content, which feels frustrating for the players who can't always log in during specific windows. It's disappointing that Capcom has stuck with its restrictive system instead of offering more flexible options. Visually, Wilds has seen improvements, but some textures and environments still feel underwhelming. The dynamic world is impressive in concept, but it doesn't always feel polished or immersive enough to elevate the experience. The story, while seemingly more prominent this time around, still lacks the depth I needed truly to engage me. Much like in World, it feels like an afterthought rather than a compelling narrative. Now, I get that Monster Hunter World, or just Monster Hunter in general, is not about its story, instead it's all about its gameplay. Combat remains Monster Hunter's strongest aspect, but it still suffers from hitbox inconsistencies. There were multiple instances in beta where I was hit by an attack that didn't actually visually connect, leading to frustrating deaths that felt unfair rather than challenging. This was a major complaint I had with World, and unfortunately it persists in Wilds. Multiplayer 2 remains clunky despite some improvements. Joining friends on hunts still involves more hassle than it should, which was one of my biggest complaints in World. Ultimately, the gameplay loop in Wilds, while refined in some ways, still feels like as tedious as it did in World. The initial thrill of hunting monsters wears off quickly when the same frustrations from the previous games resurface. The grind is still overwhelming, and many systems feel like they get in the way of the fun rather than enhancing it. Oh my goodness, don't get me started with the button layout. Like, you seriously have to hit monsters by pressing a triangle on PlayStation 5 controller, or a circle when you have to dash. It's extremely convoluted for unnecessary reasons. Now, perhaps maybe if you're a fan of Monster Hunter games, and yeah, you will definitely be familiar with it. And perhaps maybe I needed more time to get familiarized with the controls. But again, don't forget, I have finished Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, and yet I still complain about the same thing. I genuinely believe that Monster Hunter's combat has always been technically incredible and continues to evolve in good ways. It's varied and fluid, allowing for the plethora of builds to lead to some of the truly outstanding combos. Watching skilled players leap off a monster's back, twirl in the air, and land with an crushing blow never gets old. The sheer effort that has gone into making Monster Hunter Wilds animations pop and combat feel fluid makes it, at least in my opinion, better than Monster Hunter World in that regard. However, despite it all, I still cannot wrap my head around the combat. There's so much that goes into perfecting any Monster Hunter game's combat, from mastering its multifaceted weapons to understanding the best approach for each monster. Monster Hunter Wild, it's just adding even more depth and system that I had struggled with fully to grasp even in World. Of course, dedicated enough time to learning each and every weapon properly could help me finally enjoy the series, but I simply don't have the patience or interest of that level of investment, especially since I already finished World and Iceborne, and yet I still didn't resonate with me, unfortunately. After experiencing the beta, I can confidently say that Wilds has not addressed the fundamental issues that kept me from enjoying World. Now, it's important for me to clarify, while I can see why fans of the series will still love it, it's clear that Monster Hunter still isn't for me. That being said, I respect the passion behind the franchise and I appreciate the improvements that has been made. However, despite these refinements, my core frustration remains, and I don't see myself fully committing to the game when it releases. Now, before I end this, I need to clarify one thing, guys, as already mentioned a little bit. This is just my thoughts. I understand a lot of Monster Hunter Wild fans will love what they're playing here, and that's fantastic, all power to you. But this is just my thoughts. Like mentioned, this is my channel, my video. I just want to have my little chat about what I have experienced after playing Monster Hunter Wilds beta. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe. See you guys all, and have a wonderful day.